Hey, what's up, dudes? It's me, Mr. Airon the History Buff again, and welcome back to another video. How are you guys doing today? In today's video, I want to be basically covering over the top 10 world history video games here. So, if you guys seen last video, I've been covering over the top 10 world history books here, for the beginners here for world history. In today's video, we're going to be covering over the top 10 world history video games. By history video games, I'm talking about like basically that some video games that have like basically different historical timelines and different historical settings here, and it also needs to be ranked of like how good was the gameplay, how good were the graphics, how good was the description, how was the character, the voice line, and the storytelling. And we're gonna be going over this through the top 10 of the rankings here, and again, and like in the last video, these are just like basically my opinions here. So if you guys basically disagree on like any of the choices here or so here, please let me know. Or if there's any other historical video games that I think I should have like maybe added in the list here, please let me know in your comments down below. But without further ado, but before we get into beginning with it, I just want to say, if you guys haven't yet, please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel if you're new, don't forget to comment, and turn on the bell notifications, that way you get notified by every video that I'll be posting in the channel. And, yeah, so let's get started here. Alright, here we go. So, in at number 10, we have Total War Three Kingdoms here. Alright, so basically this game right here is about is like another 2D strategic video game here by the Total War series. There has many other kingdoms in this series too that takes place both Rome games and like the Shogunate era, as well as in the Napoleonic Wars and the medieval era, as well as also during around in the 18th century in the colonial period. And in this one, however, this day's game takes place around in the Three Kingdoms era, which is one of the most brutal, ancient, like basically civil wars that was led by the Chinese general Lu Guozhong here, which is basically one of the most catastrophic like civil wars in history. That was led by also another generals of the Shai Dynasty, like Chao, who he basically executed of the Laojing into the kingdoms, and they're both of the kingdoms were had into civil war here until then, like when one of the leaders gets assassinations, as well as also constant fighting and civil war. And in this game here, you can basically group with your armies, team with alliances, or sometimes declare war at each other, but also gain strategic points and natural resources, and to strategic points as allied cavalry maneuver and strategic points and attack the enemies here. And it's so good here. And yeah, but it's quite basically a tough game here, so trust me, I think it's one of those games where you have to like watch a YouTuber's like basically how to use strategic videos in order to understand the whole command and how to play a game. But I guess give that game a go here. Alright, so in number 9, we have the D-Day here by Roblox. So this game here is another this Roblox game of D-Day is another cool game that in Roblox that you can play freely in Roblox here. And basically, this game is about, like, basically, set in World War II on June 6th of 1944, after, like, that was a plan that was initiated by generals such as Dwight D. Eisenhower here, where he then strategic key points into the northern parts of landings into France here, where the Americans were then later in Omaha and Utah, and the British Canadians at Seoul, Gold, and Juneau here, where the leaders are both out, but one of the most, they were basically both one of the most harshest fightings, particularly in the most bloodiest being in Omaha Beach here, with the constant of German gunfire here, barbed wires, as well as also a bit of sand, and as well as also with bunkers, with Germans holding MG-42s, and as well as also with the Americans arriving there with the landing ship aircraft here, and as well as also like basically with the constant amount of fighting here, And it basically, but this world battle basically gave the opportunity that basically it was fought by both land, sea, and basically in the air. It was also done with basically an allied paratroopers that were about to invade and sit and attack here, and as basically, and then where the Americans took Cherbourg, and then later basically the Allies forces put before they push all the way into Kong, and but this is basically, and also the ships, the battleships that were basically around the English Channel, waiting for the bombardment and ship to blow at enemy bunkers, as well as also Americans going onto trenches and basically attack the German enemies into any of the front lines and basically invade and burn, use the flamethrowers, the bunkers before the Germans surrendered. Until then, on August 20th, that's when 1944, that's when the Germans then eventually had to be surrendered here, and until before they start slowly the liberation of France. All right, and then now in number 8 we have the Napoleonic Wars by also with Roblox here. So basically, this game is basically another cool historical game that is also that you can play in Roblox, where it's basically the game is meant to be set in like basically you can play this like basically in the Roblox in a group chat in Discord if you're a part of the membership into about playing this game. If you want to get involved in many different regiments, units, or basically different nations and different armies, and real group chats in many of the different historical battles, such as like the conquest of Egypt or the Battle of Austerlitz, or like Napoleon's invasion of Russia in 1812 of the Battle of Borodino, and or the Battle of Waterloo, and so much more stuff. And it basically it gives you different armies, regiments, and units, and gives you enlisted ranks into if you want to list your different regiments and your tactic and maneuvers, and also with gun and accuracy, and as well as also the gameplay itself is also really cool too here. And so yeah, I guess give this game a go too here. So now in a number 7 we have the Assassin's Creed Odyssey game. So this game here is like basically the Assassin's Creed series. I've actually got like I've actually got like 3 other games in the series, such as the Assassin's Creed Syndicate, which takes place in a fictionalized basically of the Industrial Revolution, and the Assassin's Creed Valhalla here, which basically takes place in the in around like into the Viking, a fictional timeline period around in the Viking Age. But this game is also, I feel like even though some of it is basically kind of a bit of a work of fiction or so here, but it's still like basically a glimpse of history here, you know, because in the Odyssey game, we were then get started to introduce like the with basically of Leonidas and like his Spartan troops, basically fighting around the against the battle of the Thermopylae in 4870 BC against like the invading Persians here, and until they were killed and murdered, and when they were fighting with fierce and with shields and swords and clashing into each other, until when the Persians with their archers and cavalry charges on both sides, and with the thousands of deaths here on both sides, until the Persians had then repelled the battle against the Persians here, until we get to dynasty details, until we were then introduced to like you can explore and like basically collect adventures, collect items, swords, foods, natural resources. You can even complete like many missions, different quests, and as well as also like visit like many ancient Greeks, like in Athens, like visit their remarkable city here, and also like based on the timeline with ancient Greeks, with the process of education and cultural, and as well as also their innovations and its art and architecture too here, and during around like the golden age of period of the late period of the with the ancient Greeks, such as also like including the ancient Greek philosophers Socrates, Plato, and the as well as also Aristotle, and as well as also introducing the ancient Greek Senate. So definitely give this game a go here. All right, so in number 6 we have the Emu War of 1932, also in Roblox here. So this game is another Roblox game that I actually played with my cousin when I was in my family trip in Austria. This game is actually a really cool, funny, and it's a really cool game here. So It's another Roblox game, and basically with the story behind this game, it's based off also the real true history, where it's basically, it takes place in 1932, where it's basically where these animals known as the emus were basically had destroyed of many of the Australian corps, and it destroyed their agriculture and their crops and lost livestock here, and so that's why basically that causes people to have less foods and famine, and as well as also and like basically because they don't have enough food, so that's why then the Australian government needed to act something to get to stop the emus from doing this, and they sent in the military here with their car trucks and with a that was matched with a Lewis machine gun, and basically trying to catch and kill all the emus, but the emus were really hard to kill because of the emus being really the smart and really the fastest animals and creatures, and they would go fast, and basically they would then run away here and just keep destroying the crops here. And some of the troops in the first attempt had tried to fire them basically with their Lee Enfield rifles here, but none of them which then tried to kill them, but none of which had ever been succeeded. And the emo wars was mostly won by basically with the invading amount of emos, even though the soldiers were able to kill only about 1,000 and like 500 emus, and and which was a disaster, as they say. And I mean, it's why basically marked as like one of the weirdest wars ever in history, because it's like basically soldiers fighting against like a killing amount of emus to protect their own agriculture and livestock and their crops here. But I say for this game, it's really cool not only that you can shoot and kill the emus, but also collecting weapons and ally together, but also like you can also like customize like basically your whole clothing and your whole uniform before you get into the battle in Austria in to fight against the emus here. So give this game a go. All right, so now in the number 5 we have the Zulu Defense here. This is also another Roblox game. So this game actually takes place. It was during around like the basically it's set around in the Anglo-Zulu War of 1879 here, and it was basically like based off of like one of the true battles that the English army had faced off against between it's a conflict between the British Empire and the Zulu Kingdom, where they basically wished into where it's take place in the British colonialism in South Africa, where they basically wanted to collect resources like iron, gold, livestock, and like basically as well as also gold, jewels, and iron, and as well as also like wood, iron, steel, and other natural resources. But they later soon clashed, but the tensions broke out between the Zulus and the British Empire, where they basically then fought against and then that the British then lost their defeat against the Zulus in the Battle of Isambhawana in the January of the 21st of 1879, and then they later clashed into later in the next battle, the siege at the Battle of Rogue's Drift here from January the 21st to the 22nd of 1879 here, where the British had basically made a whole new column here surround the fort of Rogue's Drift before the Zulus had then attacked them from like basically all sides, while the Zulus had captured many of their weapons into like basically fire at like the British troops with their rifles that they captured from the loss from the Battle of Sambawana here. Until then, that's where they were where the British had launched like mini line infantries, like you see here, where one column basically fires and then the other then fires back before they reload, and then they get to fire again, marking basically afflicted many amounts of casualties for both of the Zulus here before they retreated. Until then, like with the long fighting lasted until then, when they attacked it again at the night. Before then, they on the next day on January 22nd, where they then fought them back again at like basically at the final charge against them, and that and then the British had then launched three columns here, and then they fired, and basically after one column after another before they reload here. It was like one of the most brutal and disastrous wars and battles ever here, until the Zulus had then basically had to retreat and basically out, and that marked the British. Even though the Battle of Roke Strip was a British victory, the Battle of Istambawana was a failure because the British had underestimated the power and basically the will from the Zulus. And that's later led to also with conflicts with other states, such as the Orange State with the Dutch-speaking Boers here at the later with the Boer Wars, because British want to expand their imperialism and colonialism into South Africa, as well as also like their to collect resources such as diamonds, and later also to occupy the territory and collect the resources. But later this way tensions between war with a series of two wars known as the Boer Wars here, which is between the British and like the and the Dutch speaking Boers here. And the first fight had basically had culminated with the British with the ongoing fighting and big amounts of cannons and artillery to fight against the Boers. We are fierce fighting until when the first battle of the Boer Wars had been over. The second battle that took place from 1899 to all the way to 1902, where it was then like basically the final battle between the Boers and the British, where for a constant fighting and with the guns and fields and the sword bayonets and charges, and as well as also constant amount of fighting here until it was then absorbed into the British Empire, where then like where they captured the Boers here, and then the British later took them into many concentration camps. And yeah, so that's what basically then that's the whole story of this and the Zulu. What you do basically the game itself, the controls in this game is actually really cool. Like in terms of the gaming mechanics, as well as also there's fruit shoot and fire accuracy. Plus, you can also get like many different of all the weapons you get around the base, and also get like a flag, as well as also like an Adams revolver, a Winchester rifle, and a bungle like trumpets, and like a you can also work together with two teams to fire a machine gun at the Zulus too. So definitely give this game a fun game, even though this game it might take also is also an endless round game too, just to let you know. All right, so now in number 4 we have Enlisted here. So, basically, this is also another game here, where this is another World War II game, where it's basically another one of these multiplayer games that I find it really cool, really fascinating. It's a really cool timeline. You can either play only into, like, many of the 4 teams, that being the Americans, the Japanese, the Germans, or the Soviets, where you can basically upgrade your guns, your weapons, your items, your grenades, or inventory you can make, and unlock new achievements and all that new stuff. And it takes place into many of most iconic battles, such as the Battle of Stalingrad, the Battle of Okinawa, Iwo Jima, the Battle of the Bulge, or like or the D-Day invasion, or like the Guadalcanal campaigns, and so much more here. And if you guys want to like basically play this game here, it's available also on Steam, and I think it's also really a free game you can also pretty much play here. And yeah, so definitely give this game a go here. Alright, so now in a number 3 we have the Battlefield number 1 here. So, I got this game like basically just yesterday here, and this is actually so far a good game, even though I played it at like basically back in my family again, and when I was last time when we went to a trip in last summer, I think in Mallorca, and this game is actually really cool here. Like basically it's so good, it's often to be more authentic here, despite it being that sometimes for some critics that say that it's not that historically accurate, but I still feel like it's still a bit authentic, because I mean, Because like it's for first because we are introduced to like many of the different campaigns into the more focus on the war story, such as in the battles of the Western Front, either the Third Battle of the Europe or like the Battle of the Marne, or even in fact like they introduce other battles such as the Battle of Somme, the Battle of Verdun, and then later we also get into Mount of Tank Crews and like basically to the British were like one of the first tanks since the first tanks were actually built like during which the British and in the round the Battle of the Somme, which saw 57,000 casualties for the British here, and also we get to also introduce others such as like with the introduction of like the warfare in the air here, such as the British RAF fighting against like the German Red Barons and also on the Western Front in 1916, as well such as like the Red Barons like famously by Richthofen, and also we get to introduce also like the Austrian Italian campaigns that led to a stalemate, as well as also the British and like the campaigns against like the Ottoman Empire, and yeah, and all that kind of fun stuff here. So I'd say definitely good this to go. But the multiplayer that I played out is just kind of basically a little bit hard to play because of experts and that are Chilean sold. So be aware here. But I guess it could be also fun to play too. So definitely give this game a go here. All right, so now in the number 2 we have Lexington and Concord by Roblox. So the Lexington and Concord game is actually another really cool game here. It's another Roblox game where it takes place, like the game itself, it takes place in like, it includes the Battle of Lexington and Concord, just like it depicted in the name. It's the idea that's the first two battles that were fought with the militiamen and the British, that were the first battles of the American Revolutionary War. After the shots were fired or heard around the world, that we don't know exactly who fired first, and that led to the American Revolutionary War before they pushed back to Lexington, before the militiamen went into a guerrilla warfare campaign, before the British were desperate, ran out of supplies, and then they retreated all the way back into Boston. But not only that, but this game also basically introduces other maps too, like the Battle of Bunker Hill, the Battle of Benedict Arnold's invasion of Canada, the Battle of Quebec, as well as also like the Battle of Germantown in 1777, and the Battle of Trenton too, and also Princeton, I think, and but not only that, they do as well as also the Battle of Kings Mountain in 1780 and the Siege of Yorktown in 1781, the last battle in the American Revolution. And not only that, but they also introduce maps also too in like the War of 1812 too. They also feature in this game, such as like the raid of Quebec, or like basically like the siege of Fort Erie, and as well as also like the famous of the Battle of McHenry, and also the invasion of Baltimore of 1814. So, but this game, what it's also done is also like it's also like in terms of, it can be also like has good firearms, good weapons, and also like the costumes and like the cosmetics and everything are also really well done here. That the developers, as well as also like you can edit, like basically have different hairstyles, mustache, or like type new uniforms, or new facial features, new feelings, and as well as also as well as like new weapons and all so items and inventory and all that kind of stuff as like the second primary and special inventory. So definitely give this game a go here. So yeah, I'm about to reach the end now. So into number 1 we have Call of Duty World at War. So this is an absolute masterpiece of this game, of the best, in my opinion, the best world history, like best World War II shooter games of all time here. In fact, like one of the best Call of Duty games ever here, released back in 2008 here by Treyarch here, and basically this game is like basically one of the coolest games ever here. It's basically the game's like campaign is mostly like focused on like both centered around into the Pacific campaign, where like we're introduced into the Makan Island raid, as well as also the battle of like the Guadalcanal campaigns, as well as the Battle of Peleliu in 1944, as well as also with the as well as also like with the they also introduce like other battles too here that we can also be play here, such as like the wars and around the fighting into the Japanese in the ocean, as well as also in the Battle of Okinawa here, tearing the parts of the Shuri Castle and the American attack at the around like about the fierce fighting around the on the Shuri line against the Japanese. But not only that, but they also introduce also with the Eastern Front too, such as the Battle of Stalingrad, where we introduced to Reznov, as well as also as well as the Battle of Silo Heights too here, which is nicknamed the Gateway into Berlin, as well as also the Battle of like basically as well as also the Battle of Berlin too here finally, and yeah. So basically, definitely this game tends to be more despite this game being more historical, it's authentic. Some people, but it's not also like historically accurate in terms of costumes, uniforms, as well as tanks and everything, the timeline settings and all that kind of stuff. But some of it, but but it's still really authentic. There's also you can also play like also both like also the story mode, the campaign, the multiplayer, as well as also like you can also play with zombies, such as in the maps, such as like the Nach der Untoten or the Shinonuma or Der Reise or I guess the other map Verrückt. So basically, yeah, this is definitely a best historical. And if there's one best historical game that you have to play, it is definitely Call of Duty World at War. So definitely give this guy a go here. And yeah, that's basically it. There you guys go. These are all my top 10 historical games here. And like I said, you guys can basically get this on either both on Amazon or basically on basically you guys can play some of these games on Roblox too, and also on Steam. But I hope you guys did enjoy the video here. And what are you guys' thoughts? Do you guys agree or disagree with any of the choices or any of them that I made? Are there any other historical games that you think I should have maybe added? Please let me know. But other than that, yeah, I'll take care and I'll see you guys in my next video. So, Mr. Aaron's out. Peace.